today we are talking about imposter syndrome. You know that feeling, yeah? When you feel like a fraud, like you don't know anything, you can't get anything right. These people are going to figure out just now that they chose the wrong person for the job. Imposter syndrome. Well, the thing is that imposter syndrome is this general term that we're using to define a broken scale. A scale, like for measuring things. So the thing is that the measure that we're using for our competence is what is broken. You have determined that for you to consider yourself competent, something needs to be balancing it on the other side. And it is this balance that is making you set yourself up to never be able to succeed. So today we look at 5. There are 5 types of imposter syndromes and competence types. And we'll look at each of them with an example from TV, from the movies, from life that helps illustrate them a little more. So the first one is perfectionism. As it turns out, perfectionism is a form of imposter syndrome. Why? Because you're setting yourself up and will not be able to achieve the goal. So there, the competence is flawless execution. That is your measure. Your execution must be flawless. If there's one tiny little hint of a flaw, then it didn't work, it was terrible, that was failure. And in this one, we'll take the example of Monica from Friends. She was this, especially when it came to her cooking. Her cooking had to be absolutely perfect. Everything had to be exactly where it was meant to be for her to feel like she had done a good job. So that is the example of the competence test there. And what happens here is that you've confused excellence with control. And we can see that with Monica quite clearly. She was quite wound up in terms of controlling, needing to have everything exactly her way. And for her, that is what is the measure for her competence. The next one is the natural genius. This is the person who feels like they must know everything innately. They do not need to go and check anything anywhere because deep within them is this knowledge. And if they do not have this knowledge, then they're failing. That is their measure of competence, that it should come naturally to them and easily, and that they should know. So in that one, the competence is equal to ease and speed. If it is not easy and done, very quickly, then that is their measure. It's not going right. And in that one, we have an interesting one. We have Andy in The Devil Wears Prada. And she's Anna Hathaway's character. So she comes in. I'm sure I watched this movie recently, so for me it's top of mind. And recently was yesterday. So she comes into this runway fashion magazine. So she steps into the fashion world. She who has nothing at all to do with fashion. That is not her area at all. She doesn't know anything about it. Initially, I thought that it was an issue of belonging, that she did not feel that she belonged. But when I thought about it a little more in terms of imposter syndrome, what happened with her is that she's a bright girl. She studied, she's gone to school, and she doesn't understand anything about fashion. But it should come naturally to her. She knows everything. She knows stuff. So she puts on the air of it must not be important. Those things are for other people, commoners, who look at things like that. It cannot be important because she's not getting it. And it takes a conversation with Richie's character. And he tells her that she's not even trying. And that is when it starts hitting her that she needs to learn. She needs to learn. And from there, she builds up her own wardrobe and she builds up her own style. And from there is able to feel herself stepping into the role that she's in. So the imposter syndrome mellows away. And there we say we confuse learning with inadequacy. Imagine that. All right. Our next one is the expert. So the expert, their measure of competence is knowing more. They must know more. They need to gather all the information. They're not ready if they feel that they don't know absolutely everything. For them, knowing more and having all the information is the measure from which they can start. That is the competence. So in this one, I have Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. Why? Because much as he usually knows, I mean, he always knows everything. I remember one episode where his girlfriend knew something that he didn't. And it crushes him, it shakes him. It's terrible. The world is ending. Because for him, he needs to know everything. If he doesn't know everything, then things are not right. So that is the expert. You're gathering information, and you're not ready to move until you have all the information in the world. So there you confuse certainty with readiness. All right. Our next one, this is number 4, is the soloist. For them, competence is being able to do it alone. They must go solo. And here, I took the example of each and every male action superhero in all the movies. You take it from Gerard Butler and all his Something is Falling movies to Jack Bauer in 24, probably even back to Rambo. So in all those movies, these men have to do it alone. Of course, there's something thrown into the storyline that they need to be the ones to help, because if they don't do this and the other, then things are going to fall apart. More recently, I'd say Idris Elba in the Hijack series. So for them, it's not possible to have anyone else in. Only they can achieve this thing the way it is supposed to be achieved. And the soloist is a person who feels that asking for help is a sign of failure, because they're meant to be able to do it by themselves. And for them, they confuse independence with strength. All right, we move on to our last one. And the last one is superhuman. So for her, competence is succeeding everywhere, everywhere. That is your work, your family, your body, your relationships, everything must be at 100% all the time. And that is a measure of competence for the superhero. And here I have an interesting example, because here I also go back to The Devil Wears Prada, seeing as it's fresh from my mind from yesterday. But here, Meryl Streep's character. So she is the devil wearing Prada, and she's super excellent at her job. She's sharp, she's there, she's doing it all. And I am drawn to a scene where we have a bit of a look at her marriage life. And there she has, it leads to divorce. The husband files for divorce. And she has this scene where she's talking about the way she is considered the dragon lady because she elevated her job to her family and her relationship. And she has kids, she has twins. So she's beating herself up at this inability to maintain all these roles that she has in her life. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound familiar? It's sad. And in that movie, there is a point, it also happens to Anne Hathaway's character. So she also is trying to fit into this new role, maintain her relationship with her boyfriend and with her friends, all at the same level. And they're slipping because her job is asking for something. And I like a point in the movie, which I hadn't noticed the first time I watched it, but where Anne Hathaway's character is defending the devil wearing Prada, Meryl Streep's character, when there's a man who's saying how difficult she must be to work for. And she says that the only reason you bring up this statement is because she's a woman. If it were a man doing the same kind of role, this wouldn't even come up. And I raise this up to say that this is especially difficult for women in this day and age when we are expected to both be a boss at work and be super mom and super cook in the kitchen. And sometimes we tell ourselves that we should not get help because this is what we feel that we should do and must excel in across the board. So here, what they have confused is capacity with worth. A lot of info, a lot of things to take in. And apparently it's possible to have more than one of these traits, but there would usually be one that is more dominant. So I invite you to let me know in the comments, which is the one that is most dominant for you.